Sorry, just making sure I'm still alive. Thought I might have died. Never mind. Oh. You know, I've been watching quite a few period dramas lately. I've been watching the oh God, what's it called? Turn it's called, about the American Civil War. And what about Wagon Wheels? Hell on Wheels, that's quite a good one. One thing I've noticed about all your period dramas in recent years is nobody smokes cigarettes. You know, have your historical dramas. You know, there's 1,001 historical dramas out, aren't there? About historical dramas, you know. Nobody smokes cigarettes in any of your dramas anymore. I think tobacco was discovered probably by Raleigh or somewhere when he went to America. And he brought back tobacco, and it became very popular for about 500 years. You can watch any period drama from bloody... God. Well, you know, any period drama on television these days. Poldark or whatever, I don't care. Game of Thrones, things like that, shite. But nobody smokes cigarettes or pipes on any of your TV shows anymore, do they? On any of your... nobody smokes cigarettes in any of your costume dramas, you know. It may be set in the wild, wild west. But none of the cowboys smoke cigarettes. Have you noticed that? In all of your, you know, costume films, in all of your cowboy films of recent years, all of your costume dramas of recent years, you know. I might take the shirt off, a bit hot. Nobody's smoking cigarettes anymore in any of your costume dramas. It's like cigarettes never existed. By God, you don't know nothing of them, do you? It wasn't until the 1980s that cigarettes became a bad thing. Everybody used to smoke cigarettes in the night. Have you ever seen Andy Capp, the cartoon? You ever heard of Andy Capp, you know, the cartoon? Always had a cigarette in his mouth, didn't he? Do you know, I bet you, if they did Andy Capp now, you know the cartoon character in the comic strip, you've heard of Andy Capp? You know, this drunk, from Newcastle or something, I think it was, I can't remember. But, you know, this big cap on and cigarette in his mouth all the time. Flo was his wife, I think. In fact, I think James Boland did it, didn't he? He did Andy Capp live. That's good. Am I watching that again? I'll have to find it one day. Anyway, yeah. But have you noticed in any period dramas these days, no one smokes a cigarette? You're stuck in the Wild West, you know. You've got a film based in the Wild West, you know, cowboys and Indians and all that. Not one pipe. I mean, the Indians were smoking for thousands of years, you know. Getting really high. Oh, do you want to play with me? Oh. But nobody smokes cigarettes in costume dramas anymore, do they? Like you could be out in the Wild West, you know, these cowboys sitting at the bar, you know, playing gambling in one of your casinos, you know, in one of the American casinos, for instance, in the Wild West. All these cowboys, you know, playing poker and drinking. Not a single cigarette. What? You mean cigarettes never existed? So now you're pretending that cigarettes never existed in your costume dramas, aren't you? In a lot of costume dramas these days, you'll find there's no cigarettes inside. You walk into a Wild West bar, gamblers, you know, playing with their cards, beers pouring out, you know, pulling triggers, bang, bang, bang. But nobody's smoking a cigarette. There's not a single cigarette in sight on any of your costume dramas. It's so nice and disgusting. It's so sort of like clinical, isn't it? Even your costume dramas these days feel clinical. You know why? Not a single cigarette. You know, walk into a bar, not a single fucking cigarette. I'm sorry, but cigarettes only got banned from pubs 5 years ago or so. I mean, apparently cigarettes actually only got banned from pubs about 5 years ago. Not even the newsagents aren't allowed to show cigarettes. Cigarettes are evil. They have these boards over the tobacco counter, don't they? So you can't see what cigarettes you're buying. Whoa, we don't get people smoking. Whoa, that's a bad idea. I was watching this Turn thing as well, about the American Civil War. Very good drama. but not as... Sorry, I need some snuff. I was watching Turn. You like snuff? You tried snuff? Snuff's nice. Sniffing tobacco. But I was watching that, and not a single person not a single officer doing snuff. Everybody used to do snuff, or if you had enough money. But no one's smoking cigarettes or pipes or cigars anymore. Do you know what's going to happen now? You know what I reckon is going to happen next? They're going to do a biography of Winston Churchill, right? With old Winston, conquering the war. I bet you there won't be a single cigar in it. What? Winston with no cigar? I can imagine that. They'll probably make a costume drama next to Winston Churchill or something, and they won't have a single cigar in his mouth. Like, cigars never existed, tobacco never existed. Why are you trying to destroy tobacco? Tobacco is lovely. Tobacco is beautiful. I love smoking. Smoking's fucking good for me. It makes me feel good. You know, it's in the morning when you cough a lot. You think, oh God, I need a cigarette. So you have a cigarette and then, oh no cough. And the only reason I cough is because I need a cigarette. Like, I've been smoking for fucking 4 billion years now, and I like it. Right, yeah. But I've noticed in these costume dramas, it might be realistic scenery like mud and everything or whatever. But not a single person is smoking a cigarette in these fucking TV shows and these costume dramas. My God, in the 50s and 40s and 30s, every movie, everyone smoked cigarettes. Groucho Marx, great big cigars, Jimmy Dean, cigarette in his mouth. In fact, have you ever seen any 1950s hospital? They're good. Science fiction, the hospitals, and it's sort of like 1950s science fiction, and the doctors are all sitting there smoking cigarettes. Have you ever seen any black and white movies? I don't suppose you watch black and white movies anymore, do you? You watch a few black and white movies, Humphrey Bogart, Casablanca, You watch any 1950s movies, and you go to the doctor's surgery, and the doctor's sitting there smoking a cigarette. Yeah, what's wrong with you, mate? I'm fine, thanks a lot. Any fucking movie, any science fiction, any movie in the 1950s or 40s or 60s and 70s, everyone smoked cigarettes and stuff. It's prohibition again, isn't it? It's like prohibition with cigarettes. So instead of prohibiting alcohol, nowadays they prohibit cigarettes. You can't smoke in a pub. Well, what's the point of going to a pub if you can't have a cigarette and a pint of lager? What is the point of going to a pub if you cannot smoke a cigarette while you have your pint of lager? You come to the pub to mix with your mates and see your mates. That's why you go to a pub, to see your mates and have a chill out. Well, I have my own little pub sort of thing. And they get free beer. Back anyway. But I don't go to the pub anymore because of the fact that you're not really allowed to smoke. You're not allowed to smoke when you're drinking. It'll be next fucking 20 years. It'll be like you're not allowed to drink alcohol when you're in the pub. The pub is a place where you can sit and chill. The pub is supposed to be a place where you can sit and chill with your mates, your buddies, play a game of cards or whatever, have a few drinks, listen to the jukebox. Actually, here's a good one. Is Bill Shirley still alive? Bill Shirley was a very, 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 very good friend of mine when I was at school, Hatfield School. Do you remember Hatfield School? And Bill Shirley, his dad was David Shirley, the solicitor. He was a solicitor. And they lived next door to the pub. There's this big 3-story house next door to the pub at 8 Bells. Who remembers the 8 Bells? Does Roger Deans remember the 8 Bells? That's a wonder. Does Roger Deans remember the 8 Bells? Roger Deans. We made a promise once. I've only ever made one promise I have only ever made one promise. In fact, it was probably about 30 years ago, Roger. 30 years ago. It was about 30 years ago. I was sitting at the bar in the pub, you know, the Eight Bells, buying drinks for the lads, like, well, they're buying drinks for me and stuff. And there's Roger. Roger was at the bar with me at the Eight Bells, Hatfield, Hertfordshire. Yeah. We were 19, I think, probably, Roger. And I made a promise to you, Roger. I never break a promise, Roger. I said, Roger, I never break a promise. 30 years ago, this year, I made a promise. I said, one day, when I've got time, I'm going to burn all your skin off. Now, isn't that the promise I made, Roger? We made a promise 30 years ago. I said, one day, when I've got time and I'm not busy, I'm going to burn all your skin off. We were like cowboys when we were kids. In fact, we were the cowboys when we were kids. I know a lot of the teenagers in this town, Hatfield, and they're so innocent. Really, they are. Okay, they smoke pot and all that. We used to smoke fucking pot, you know, occasionally. But in fact, I don't think you did, actually. I don't think Roger did smoke. I think Roger didn't smoke, actually. He was one of the few of us who didn't smoke, probably. No, Roger didn't smoke, as far as I know. Bill smoked. Bill used to love a cigar. New Year's Eve. We used to sit in the pub and sort of outside in the pub and sort of smoke cigars and shit. But there was Bill Shirley, Roger Deans, Paul Salou was there quite a lot. Danny Barnes. Is Dan Barnes still alive? Is Dan still alive? Dan Barnes. I've known the Barnes all my life. Actually, me, Bill Bailey, me, Paul Salou, and Daniel Barnes started the whole thing, really, in a way. We were 5 years old. The gang thing started about, well, one month. But we were 5 years old when we went to Howdale School. All three of us. Me, Paul Salou, and Dan Barnes. Right. We went to Howdale School, didn't we? In 1970s. Mrs. Gately. She's very old now, but she's still alive, actually. I think she's not doing as great as she'd like to be. But she's still alive, I think, Mrs. Gately is. You remember Mrs. Gately? Do you remember the Gates? This is for Daniel Barnes, Paul Salou, and me. Yeah? And do you remember Howdale School? When we were 5 years old. 5 years old, 1970, wasn't it? And Mrs. Gately was our teacher, wasn't she? Do you remember? I remember my first day at school. Do you know, on my first day at school, my headmistress, Betty Matthews, I think she's passed on now. Betty Matthews. She used to play the piano, you see. When I was at school, my headmistress used to play the piano. But did you know, the very first time, when I was 5 years old, literally, when I was 5 years old, I walked into the assembly hall in Howdale School. And my fucking headmistress, this is a true story, my headmistress, Betty Matthews, was sitting on the piano playing Won't You Come Home, Bill Bailey, Won't You Come Home, bam, 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 Won't You Come Home, Bill Bailey. Did you know that was on my very first day at primary school? You know, when you're 5 years old. You know how it is when you're 5 years old, right? Literally 5 fucking years old. I walk into the assembly hall. I think it was the dining. No, I think the piano was in the dining hall. Maybe there was 2 pianos. I'm not quite sure. Can't remember quite. But I went to Howdale School. My very first day, 5 years old. She was playing Won't You Come Home, Bill Bailey, Won't You Come Home, da 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 da, Won't You Come Home, Bill Bailey. My headmistress, she used to sing that quite a lot when I was at Howdale School. That basically, very first day. How do you think that makes a 5-year-old feel? When he's 5 years old, walk into the fucking lounge, into the dining room or whatever, the piano room. And my headmistress is singing, "Won't you come home, Bill Bailey? Won't you come home?" Blah, 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 blah. So everyone's called me Bill ever since, basically. It's funny, isn't it? You'd have to be there you'd have to live the life to enjoy it. I was only 5 years old, for fuck's sake. Gave the game away completely, she did. I loved Betty Matthews. She was a great fucking headmistress. Anyway, I was talking about, when we were fucking teenagers. We went to Hatfield School. We went to Hatfield School, I went to Hatfield School afterwards when I was about 12 or 11 or 12. I think 12 was it, Hatfield School. Anyway, kids today think they're so hard, don't they? Teenagers today think they're so fucking hard, don't they? Does anybody remember 2B or not 2B? In Hatfield School, it was 2B, class 2B. In fact, Damien Jakes, you bought me my first ever book that I read properly, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I think it was about 13 or something like that. When I was at Hatfield School. Was it Hatfield or Howdell? I can't remember. No, I think it was Howdell. That was Howdell, wasn't it? Damien Jakes, I think. Did you go to Howdell? Or was it the first year of Hatfield? Anyway, you bought me that book, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, didn't you? In fact, we had a disco at my house, like a little disco. We were about 11 years old or whatever. And Damien Jakes gave me a book called Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. First book I ever really read, actually. That's interesting. Anyway, yeah. Just saying, sort of old time's sake, I think Gary Stoker. I knew Gary Stoker and David Brown. Gary Stoker. And I still know your parents, actually. I still see your parents in town. This is actually Gary Stoker. Is Gary Stoker still alive? Hope so. Gary Stoker, we're 49-50 this year. Hey? We're 49-50 this year. I still see your parents occasionally, Say hello to them. I'm not on the same round anymore. I was on the same paper round as your parents. On the same post round. So I saw your parents. I know your parents quite well, actually, Gary. I always have done. That's just we're 5 years old. You started Howdell School. In fact, Gary Stoker used to go to Howdell School, and so did David Brown. Well, I can't remember everybody. But anyway, I'm just saying, but you gave me my first book at one of my discos, because me and my brother, I think, Robert, we had a joint birthday party, we had a disco or something, and you gave me this book when I was about 7 or 8, no, maybe 9 years old. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, very good book. Anyway, that inspired me a bit. Anyway, I'm just thinking, but when we were teenagers at Hatfield, when I went to Hatfield School, after house, I went to Hatfield School, and we used to have, teenagers are so violent now, they've got knives or guns or whatever. Bullshit. We had chair fights, to be or not to be. When we were kids, when we were about 13, 14, we didn't need guns or fists or anything. We used to play games. We used to have this game called chair fight. And what you did, you have a classroom, right? This classroom. You push all the tables to one side and hit both sides, so you've got barricades, right? Both sides have a table, so like you've got a barricade. And then what you do is you pick up the chairs and you throw the chairs at each other. Okay? This was in Hatfield School when we were kids. We used to have chairs. We used to sort of like blockade the room, like so we've got two barricades of tables. And then we used to pick up the chairs and we used to throw the chairs at each other. When we were kids, we used to have chair fights. Do you know what a chair fight is? It's when you've got a classroom, right, with all these desks and chairs, and you push all, because the teacher didn't turn up or something, so you pushed all the tables to one side to put the fight by themselves, and then we used to throw the chairs at each other. Do you remember the chair fights? That was fun. I'm going to go to the toilet. I'm going to make another movie in a minute.